And we're back for part two of the preview of the sixth edition of the Women's 100. Lot of offs, lot of ifs, lot of buts. We've spoken about four teams already: Birmingham Phoenix, London Spirit, Manchester Supergiants, and My London. We spoke about some of the players, what combinations we can expect, and why we think some teams would do better than others. And of course, there's still four teams to go, and we will be talking about them in due course. There's still Southern Brave, there's Sunrisers Leeds, there's Trent Rockets, and Welsh Fire to boot. And we'll be talking about all of them in depth, just like part one. And for the uninitiated, if you haven't already checked out part one, please do check the link in the description. Do check it out. Do watch it. Do let us know what your thoughts are on those four teams. And of course, then you can also check out the remaining four teams over here in this very video. Starting off, cutting to the chase, Southern Brave to begin with. Jeet, once again, a side that we spoke about how change in management, Delhi Capitals bought over Hampshire, or rather GMR technically bought over Hampshire, the county itself, which is why Southern Brave now comes under the Capitals gambit. No name change, which was a bit surprising, but of course the jersey colors have still changed. They've gone back to the blue and red of the Capitals franchise. What have you made of the acquisitions? What have you made of the squad?
It's a good squad. This is the one team that I cannot quite argue about because even historically they've proven to be really successful, having won over 70% of games. So they have been the most successful side in terms of number of wins that they have accumulated over these years. So not bad as far as that is concerned. I think just the one bad year back in 2024 where they finished 8th. Otherwise, they won it once and they have been runners-up thrice. So perhaps quite aptly acquired by GMR. But yeah, it's a good squad. Quite a few Delhi Capitals names. You could see that touch and it's always going to come. It's nothing new. But overall, I still don't mind the kind of look that this kind of side has got.
Yeah, Jonathan Batty, of course, is the head coach of the Southern Brave. Once again, you can see the DC connect there too. He's also been the head coach for the Delhi Capitals in the WPL. And like you mentioned, the names there, Lizelle, not Maya Boucher, apologies, Jemima Rodriguez, Laura Wolfart, some names come to mind over there in terms of the connections that we've been talking about. But of course, like you said, they have been one of the most successful franchises, if not the most successful franchise in the history of the tournament. When you see how that squad shapes up, some of the options, especially when you look at the bowling attack, because Lauren Bell has been a mainstay for them and she continues to be the mainstay for them. Outside that pace attack with, Izzy Wong coming in now, what do you make of it?
It's a good question because I was just looking into what they have generally done in the past. And I noticed a pattern where they just go ahead with 2 or 3 pacers in the side and they bank upon the spinners. So last season also it was very clear. They had Lauren Bell and they had Sophie Devine and Freya Kemp as support pacers. Now, Freya Kemp did not even bowl, which practically meant there were only 2 pacers who were operating and the rest of the 4 were spinners. So where this could become a challenge is that Sophie Devine was able to be a good support pacer to Lauren Bell. Lauren Bell took 19 wickets and Sophie Devine took 13 wickets. Now, are you going to get the same with Izzy Wong? That is where my question is because Devine has taken 16 wickets in 24 innings. Izzy Wong has taken 18 wickets in 31 innings. So that consistency in terms of wicket-taking ability has been an issue for Izzy Wong. So what role Sophie Devine was able to play so well is something that we don't know if Izzy Wong will be able to play or not, purely because of her struggles that she has had with her run-up initially. Then, she was out of form. She was out of the side as well. She was benched for a long time as she kept working on that run-up and everything. And that effectiveness also seems to have dropped. That discipline is still a bit of an issue. Death overs ability has increased, but we have talked about this on how she just keeps bowling slow balls after slow balls at the back end. So we just don't know what to really expect from her. So I think that is where there could be a bit of a challenge.
That's exactly what I was also wondering because they essentially have only 2 pacers. I was looking at the 11 that I'd made and I was like, where's the third pacer? Where's the third pacer? And then I'm like, okay, they don't have a third pacer in the 11 right now. At least the 11 that I have come up with, unless you do want to consider someone like a Phoebe Franklin, who's technically a part-time medium pacer if you want to really sort of go that route or go down that route. But the spin attack also now, Jeet, they've gone ahead with Sarah Glenn. They, of course, also went back to Tilly Coleman, paid big bucks for her, £105,000. I mean, that's not small money. And of course, the new skipper, Sophie Molyneux, also now enters the fray. On paper, definitely a very strong bowling lineup or spin bowling lineup that.
Yeah, on paper, it looks quite good. And I think they will come good. It won't be a big issue. But just historically, their numbers in this particular tournament have not been good at this particular venue. TCC is averaging over 30. Glenn has struggled as well. Sophie Molyneux hasn't bowled in this particular tournament at this venue. But in the T20 World Cup, I think she got a game or something. But otherwise, she doesn't have the experience of bowling over here either. But still, I mean, these are just numbers and they may not matter at the end of the day. But you talk about the overall look of the spin attack, it's quite good. You'll get TCC bowling probably, maybe with the new ball, I think she'll probably have the preference over Sophie Molyneux. Sophie Molyneux might operate through the middle phase and at the death, so TCC will probably have a more active role in the power play. Sarah Glenn didn't have the best of the seasons last year with the London Spirit, but she has been good. I'll be honest, she has been good this season in the Blast. She has had injury concerns. Another thing I've noticed is, that she's being hidden in the field. You have to hide her in the field because she's not moving so quickly. You don't associate her to be quick, but I think she's struggling a bit because she's not 100% just coming off a long injury layoff. So she's always placed at the third position, at the third region, and she's struggling over there. But as a bowler and as a batter, I feel she's still doing a good job. So over here also, I still feel that this spin trio should be able to do well.
It's a good spin attack, and like you mentioned, of course, there is a lack of an off spinner. But once again, that's more of a good to have for me, and not a must have. Also, because you primarily see right hand batters, so you'd much rather focus on bringing in a slow left armer over an off spinner if you have the luxury of something like that. Again, once again, when you look at the 11 right now, or whatever 11 that we come up with, we'll talk about the 11 exactly later. There aren't too many bowling options to look at, right? Because you've got a lot of batters, you've got a lot of bowlers, but there aren't too many all-rounders that you can depend upon, and that's not something that we can often say about a women's side in general.
It's a bit of a mixed bag because look, I mean, for Lauren Bell, there are just two direct backup options in Daisy Gibb and Ellie Anderson, both of who take the new ball. Phoebe Franklin is somebody who I think is underrated with the bat, but with the ball also she can do a decent job. Now her backup is Naomi Dattani, who bowls left arm pace and bats left hand. So she's a backup option to her. And otherwise, there is this Catherine Fraser as an off-spin option. So it's probably the starting 11 that is really good. The backup options are not as good or as experienced as you would want. So I think that is where they could have a bit of an issue. But otherwise, yeah, it's just that starting 11. I think it's just so solid that they can bank upon it to, end up winning a few games and even push for a claim in finishing in the top three.
Interesting. And the batting itself, Jeet, because we spoke about the overseas pros. Apart from that, they've got someone like a Jodie Grucock as well now, who comes in. You've got Phoebe Franklin slotting in much later, probably number 6, number 7. And then there's Sophie Molyneux to follow. And then you've got Izzy Wong, Sarah Glenn, TCC, Lauren Bell. In all likelihood, all of these 4 bowlers would form a part of their lower order / tail. What do you make of the batting lineup?
Batting lineup, I think it's a pretty gun batting lineup. At least the top 5 are just so solid. Quite a few experienced names. Most of the overseas players are, in that top 5. So I don't think that will be a big issue. I personally would have loved to have, Bex Odger starting as well, but there is just no place to fit her because you've already got a Lizzie Lee in your side who's going to be keeping the wickets and also opening. So there is just no place for Bex Odger. So currently she'll just be a backup option to Lizelle. But otherwise, a good lineup. I think that top 5 convinces me. It's probably what's going to come after that top 5, which doesn't convince me so much because last time around they had a Freya Kemp, do the job at the back end. But over here, I don't know whom can you look at out of Phoebe Franklin, Sophie Molyneux. Izzy Wong can do a decent job, in finding the boundaries. Sarah Glenn can do a decent job at finding the boundaries, but it could still be a bit of an issue.
One reason why I spoke about, batting, bowling, or probably the lack of potent all-round options was the fact that, once again, like Birmingham Phoenix, they were another side that had very few losing bids, which meant these names were more often than not a part of their plan is they did not lose out on a lot of players. But the one key player that they didn't lose out on was Nadine de Klerk. They placed a losing bid of £165,000 for her. And you can see why they would have wanted someone like her, a gun all-rounder who can offer value with both bat and ball. Because I feel like that's probably the one sort of player type that's missing. People can argue, Sophie Molyneux or to some extent Phoebe Franklin, like Jeet said, but you still want to believe someone of the caliber of Nadine de Klerk, just an all-rounder, gun all-rounder who can offer value with both bat and ball. Importantly, a pace all-rounder who can also sort of, as your second or third pacer, that probably would have lent a lot more balance to the side. But fair enough, of course, you can't always get your plan A's right bang on. So interesting to see that this was their plan A. And I do agree with Jeet. When you look at this 11, I feel most of the names pick themselves because most of them have got plenty of experience, not just in international cricket, but also in domestic cricket. And that's what, Jeet, once again, let's talk about the playing 11 or our expected starting 11 for them. How does it stack up for you?
It's going to be the same DC pairing in Lizelle Lee and Laura Woolward will be opening, which means Maya Bouchier will have to bat at number 3, unless if they are happy to have Bouchier open and shift Laura Woolward to number 3, then it's a different case. But I'm just sticking with Lizelle Lee, Laura Woolward and Bouchier at 3. Number 4, I've gone ahead with Jodie Grucock. There is a good chance that Jemmy probably bats at number 4, but I would personally prefer a left-hander batting at number 4. Grucock is technically solid, but it's not her ideal format. I mean, she's still a work in progress in terms of finding the boundaries or, batting with a high intent. but still at least a left-handed bat option at number 4, who's technically solid. Number 5 is going to be Jemima. Number 6, I've gone ahead with Phoebe Franklin or Naomi Dattani, just because I feel she offers slightly more value than Naomi in this particular format. Number 7 is going to be Sophie Molyneux for me. Number 8, Izzy Wong. Then Sarah Glenn, Lauren Bell, and number 11 will be TCC.
Fair enough. Again, it's pretty much the same 11. Probably it's the top order that I would want to deliberate a bit more on. While I can see why Lizelle Lee, Laura Wolfhard would be an opening combination that they would want to try and go back to, but Maya Boucher was also part of their retentions. So clearly they were they wanted her and they sort of built a side keeping her in mind. So I would want to believe that she would be given some preference there. And also Laura Wolfhard has now been batting at number 3 consistently in franchise cricket for a while. So somewhere that also might play a role in sort of just making it easier for them. One question though for you, Jeet. You did mention Jodie Grucock at number 4 because the others pick themselves, and you would want to ensure the likes of Laura Wolfhard, Maya Boucher, Lizelle get the best options or best positions possible ahead of someone like a Jodie Grucock because she's still a work in progress. Then do you think that slot is still up for grabs? We spoke about Catherine Fraser, we spoke about Naomi Dattani. I don't know to what extent Dattani can probably slot in. Catherine Fraser opened for Scotland. I know you're not the biggest fan of her batting ability, but she is a more than decent off spinner to have up your ranks. Exactly the kind of bowling type missing. Do you think that's worth considering?
It can be worth considering. Look, Jodie does bat at 3 and 4 for her domestic side as well. So she's more used to those particular slots. And she did decently, at the back end of the tournament in the blast for Essex. But it's just the backup options. Naomi Dattani, I remember Naomi Dattani used to open at one stage. I think in the initial years of the 100, she was pinned as an opener. So she's got a good power game through the leg side, but still not as dependable. As a bowler, she has actually improved a lot. She's been taking a new ball as well, plus a left arm pace option. So that could be a good variety to have as well. But and Catherine Fraser again, the problem for me was that she should not be opening. She has got a decent ability to strike the ball cleanly, but I think that is something that can be squeezed out at the back end rather than as an opener. That's the value you'll probably get at the back end. So that's the only bone of contention that was there for me. But just the fact that Jodie Grucock is a left-handed batter, so you get that sort of variety as well. Plus, you will have that wrist spin option to go to if you end up being on a surface that aids spinners. So just that sort of option as well, perhaps works in Jodie's favor, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, fair enough. Of course, I mean, make no mistake, Jodie Grucock is herself an all-rounder, and of course, it does help that she's also a wrist spinner. But that's definitely food for thought, and it'll be interesting to see. If not first up, because you would imagine Jodie Grucock will get the nod ahead of the rest simply because of what she brings to the table. But eventually, would that be something they would consider should this not work out? That remains to be seen. Apart from that, of course, Jemmy following her, then Phoebe Franklin, Sophie Molyneux, the likes of Izzy Wong, Sarah Glenn, Lauren Bell, and TCC finishing up the 11. I think, yeah, it's pretty much done and dusted because the names pick themselves. The backups in Bex Rogers, Daisy Gibb, Ellie Anderson, Naomi Dattani, Catherine Fraser, they will have to weigh their chances in the wings, and let's see if that actually works out for them. I do agree with Jeet. The first 11 does look very solid because you look at each of these 11 options, everyone has experience. Even the youngsters, the so-called youngsters, they're coming in with at least some experience in the 100 already. You want to talk about TCC? Sure, she's young by age, but she's already had a season with the Southern Brave themselves. And then, of course, she's also been a part of the English setup. She's already been a part of a T20 World Cup, nothing less. So it's, I think, going to work in their favor. Sophie Molyneux, importantly, as captain Dojit, recently led her national side to a World Cup title. What did you make of that call? Because I personally did not see that coming, to be honest. And now, yeah, I'm happy with it.
No, personally, I would have preferred Laura Wolfhard over her. I'm not sure who are the other options. Look, domestically, they didn't have a lot of options. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You can't have Sarah Glenn leading the side or even Maya Boucher because they don't have the experience. So domestically, they didn't really have so many options there. Overseas, I just felt there was the option of Jemmy, there was the option of Laura Wolfhard, and of course, Sophie Molyneux. So just the fact that, Sophie Molyneux ended up lifting the T20 World Cup, with Australia perhaps worked in her favor, but it's Australia. You've got gun players throughout the squad. Now for Southern Brave, it could be a little different. And I feel this is where the challenge comes. It's, managing a very different team, having players that are not so well known to you, the English domestic players, that is. I think this is where, her captaincy will be challenged. And if she comes out trumps, then it's going to be a bit of a surprise to me. But otherwise, I was split. It would have been either Laura Wolfhard or Sophie Molyneux. Personally, I would have still preferred Laura Wolfhard because she's been involved in this competition right from the beginning, whereas Molyneux has missed quite a bit of it.
Exactly. That was my main reason because Like you said, Laura, and even to some extent, Jemmy has a lot more experience in the 100, and that's not the case with Sophie Molyneux. Importantly, like you mentioned, with the Australian setup, again, I don't want to discredit her role as a captain, but you have a much lesser role as an active captain, and that's going to be challenged over here because you'll have to be a lot more astute tactically. You'll have to be a lot more flexible, on field because you don't have 11 gun players at your disposal. But yeah, it'll still be a fun watch, and this side is definitely looking very good. They've got a lot of options, a lot of gun options, importantly, across batting, across bowling. So yeah, very exciting to see how this pans out for them. Next up, of course, a side that I don't know I would want to call exciting. It is the Sunrisers Leeds. The Sunrisers Hyderabad, of course, took over the Northern Superchargers, the Yorkshire franchise. I mean, not exactly the Yorkshire county, but the franchise that was based out of Yorkshire. Leeds Headingley was their hometown, or rather their home venue. And again, Sunrisers Leeds, technically, it is the first foray for Kavya Marin and co in women's cricket. And it was interesting to see the way they went about their auction. And it was interesting to see the kind of names they went ahead with, to be honest. But first thoughts on the Sunrisers Leeds, what have you made of them?
So names individually, may not be as convincing, but when you look at the lineup of the top six, top seven, it's like really good. So I still feel they've done a pretty good job. Just that, only three surviving players from last year's campaign, and two of them are overseas players in Phoebe Litchfield and Annabelle Sutherland. So the only domestic player who has survived is Kate Cross. So the entire winning team has changed. So, you can come with the tag of, being the defending champion, but you don't have the players that were involved the last time around. So it's a completely new look, as it is, for most of the other teams as well. So initial thoughts, of course, a good side. I'm pretty pleased with that. Spin attack could be a bit of an issue, but otherwise, yeah, it's not a big issue as such. Otherwise, and from other perspective.
I agree with you on the batting lineup because it is looking very good, but I'll also have to probably add a caveat that a lot of it hinges on their overseas pros because a big reason why it's looking so good is the fact that they've got Phoebe Litchfield, Annabelle Sutherland, and Jess Jonathan at 3, 4, and 5. And that goes a long way in ensuring that they do really well. Not to forget, of course, their newly crowned skipper, Danny Gibson, is also at number 7, who is a more than decent option to have herself. But the bowling bit, Jeet, you spoke about spinners in particular, but I'll just expand to bowling in general because even when you look at the pace attack, outside of Kate Cross, not too many options that will make you go wow. Of course, there's Annabelle Sutherland to some extent, Danny Gibson. But again, is this a bowling lineup that can win you the tournament? Probably I would not have a very direct yes as an answer to it. What are your thoughts on that?
No, they can. I actually quite like the look of it. Kate Cross, of course, has to be the leader of the pack, and she has done sensationally well in the history of the tournament, taking the new ball and being really smart with how she goes about it. But the support pacer, and the name is Cassidy McCarthy. I think she's extremely underrated. So if you look at the numbers, they will not really seem good. But the fact of the matter is, she's the second quickest pacer in England. She's in contention with Izzy Wong, but if you look at the average pace, and I think she has been right up top after Lauren Filer. So she's somebody that at least I really rate highly. It's just that her utilization in the Trent Rockets is something I didn't really necessarily agree with, which also affected her efficiency. Otherwise, if that pairing of Kate Cross and Cassidy McCarthy are given a long rope in the power play itself, then that can be a deadly combination to have up front. The support pieces are good as well. Like Annabelle Sutherland is whom you have, and then you've got Danny Gibson as well. So that's not a real problem as such. It's a spin that still convinces me, because that doesn't convince me so much, because you've got Jess Johnson, you've got Diti Sharma, that's fine. But the support spinners, Hannah Baker as the only respite option, she's still struggling for consistency and discipline. We saw that last season as well with the Birmingham Phoenix. So how bankable she is something I still don't know. Whether she has improved, whether she has gotten better from last season onwards, I'm not entirely sure about that, which means they'll have to add an extra spinner in the side. You can't just rely upon Diti Sharma as an off spinner, because we have seen how she has been going about her job as well against some of the stronger opponents that she has faced. So they'll have to add somebody like Chloe Skelton, who is a frontline off spinner in the side, and she has done a terrific job as well. Playing for Somerset, and I think she represented England Day as well against India. So she has done a decent job over there. So if they can have that extra spin option in their playing 11, I think that will end up making a huge difference, and it will ensure that their dependency on Hannah Baker is not so high, because if she struggles in her first or the second set, then you'll always have a Chloe Skelton that you can go to.
It's funny how we're talking about Chloe Skelton because she unfortunately wasn't even a part of the initial squad. She was a part of the replacements that they signed. Unfortunately, 3 of their players had to back out. But a part of the wildcard signings was also Darcy Carter, Jeet, a name that you was really looking forward to. The World Cup was a part of the play, a part of your players to watch out for. Any chance she can make it into the side? Because I know the opening, I mean, the two openers are probably, even the batting lineup in general seems locked and loaded. But yeah, any chance she might be able to squeeze herself into the 11?
It's highly unlikely, to be very honest, because top seven, top eight are a lock. So the only place that is up for grabs is that of Chloe Skelton. So if not Chloe Skelton, then there is a Claudie Cooper as well, who balls off spin, and she's familiar as she represents Yorkshire. Darcy Carter will have to bat that down the order, or that low down the order, which honestly is not completely wrong, because in the T20 World Cup, we did see her struggle after the power play was over, where she suffered a massive slowdown pretty much every game. And even domestically, for the county side, she bats down the order as well. So it's, but not this low, of course. But yeah, given the fact that top six, top seven are completely, booked and kind of locked and loaded, it's very hard to fit Darcy Carter in those particular positions. Otherwise, yeah, I feel she's going to end up being a backup at the moment.
And the Deepti Sharma buy, Jeet, because again, base price pick. A lot of people were surprised that she only went at base price. Of course, she didn't take part in the 2025 edition. Unfortunately, backed out last minute. 2024 edition, we all know her heroics in the final, hitting the six of the last ball to win London Spirit their trophy. Again, do you think she's a name that they sort of were right in picking, or do you think they probably could have looked at someone else? Because again, once again, we've spoken time and time again about Deepti Sharma, the T20 player or the shorter format player, and how she's not really worked out the way she should have, especially in the recent past. But happy with her part of this 11 or a part of this combination over here for Sunrisers Leeds.
Yeah, I don't mind it, because she's got a good blend of players around her, and the fact that she'll be pairing up with somebody like Jess Johnson would probably end up making a bit of a difference as well. However, personally, I'm still a little bit concerned, because Leeds is a venue that's not known to eight spinners. In fact, it's the worst venue for the spinners. It's generally very flat, and on those flatter pitches, Dipti Sharma always struggles. So how she ends up finding a solution to being really effective will perhaps determine how the campaign goes for her. But it's just good that she's got a Jess Johnson bowling from the other end, who has played her entire season for Yorkshire. So she would know the conditions, and hopefully she'll be there to guide Dipti if required. Otherwise, I don't mind, because yeah, there are plenty of gun players around her.
Well, the squad itself looks really good. Once again, I still have my reservations, and a lot of it stem from the fact that SRL, especially at the auction, was one of the worst sides for me to watch, because they seem to be placing a bid for every other player. In fact, they had the most number of losing bids for any side in the auction. They had 13 losing bids, and this included a whole host of players. It wasn't a specific player type that they were looking at. They lost out on 4 wicket keepers, they lost out on 4 spin all rounders, they lost out on 3 pace bowling all rounders, they lost on 3 batters. So there's like an even spread across bowler types, batting types, and everything. And that's why it makes you wonder. Clearly, this wasn't their plan. Whatever squad they have, this isn't what they intended on having in the first place, at least to some extent. So now, to what extent was this their plan? To what extent was the squad constructed keeping whatever sort of playing style or approach they had in mind? We don't know, and that's something that we will have to still keep an eye out on. And that's probably where I don't want to sort of hold my thoughts on them and not sort of jump the gun, but at the same time also feel somewhere I've become too biased against them just because of how that auction happened. So maybe I should also cut them some slack, because like you've said, on paper, I do believe they've got some more than decent names. They've got a lot of match winners, and importantly, the overseas pros, the lineup that they have, they're in great recent form. Jess Jonathan has spent a lot of time in England off late. That Animal Sutherland's also there. Phoebe Litchfield's coming. I won't say on the back of a great World Cup, but again, fantastic performances in the recent past. Deepti Sharma, for whatever it's worth, is once again a name that you wouldn't want to just completely count out on only your peril, to be honest. Coming to the 11 now, Dujit, how does that stack up for you?
It's going to be Brian E. Smith opening with Lauren Winfield. Lauren Winfield again has been a name that has been under a lot of criticism over the years, and quite rightly so. 5 seasons of the 100, and I think in one she has managed to average over 50. Other than that, the rest of the 4 seasons has seen her average less than 17 runs. So I think that's not such a good sign. But I just feel that she started off with the Northern Superchargers in her first season. Then she represented the Oval Invincibles. So now she's back home again, representing the Sunrisers, Leeds, Yorkshire again. Connect. She's a skipper of Yorkshire. So, and she got a ton as well, in one of the blast games. So she could still come good. Let's probably just wait to see how she goes in the second season, playing in familiar conditions. Number 3, I've gone ahead with Phoebe Litchfield. This is something we have discussed in the past as well, that Litchfield, batting in the power play and after power play is a big difference. At least when playing in England, she dots up a lot in the power plays. It's either fours or dots. That's what you get. And after the power play, the reason why she succeeds is because she brings about, or at least her funky shots come into play or become a lot more effective once the field spreads out, because there are a lot more other gaps to access against the spinners. So that's what makes her a lot more effective after the power play. But in this lineup, there is no choice. She has to bat at number three, unless if they are willing to have Jess Johnson bat at number three. But at least I am sticking with Phoebe at number three, Jess Johnson at number four, Annabelle Sutherland at number five, Dipti Sharma at number six, Danny Gibson at number seven. So that's a top-notch top seven to have. This top seven will be followed by Kate Cross at number eight. I personally gone ahead with Chloe Skelton because I feel they need another spinner on the side. And of course, I rate her a bit more highly as compared to Claudie Cooper, who's a little inexperienced. Hannah Baker at number 10, and I've got Cassidy McCarthy at number 11 to wrap up the playing 11.
Agree with the 11, same set of 11 names that I had in mind. But a couple of questions for you, Jeet. Once again, Deepti Sharma at number 6. I get where you're coming from. It's not like it isn't a fixed order that you're looking at. You want it to be situational. You want Danny Gibson to play the role of the finisher. But again, when you look at batters below Danny Gibson, it sort of tapers off very quickly, right? Number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11. There's not a lot of batting coming in. Again, you might think, I mean, people might think that I'm nitpicking here a bit too much, but when you compare it to some of the other squads, you would want to say the drop off is a bit too steep over there with the tail.
It is. Look, I mean, Kate Cross and Chloe Skelton can bat. They are decent in terms of contributing, but it's just that, their backup options are not up to the mark. Katie Jones as a wicket-keeper batting option. Darcy Carter, we know in this format, probably won't even start in this particular lineup. Emily Windsor is not suited to this format of the game. She's technically pretty good. Sophia Turner is an option that they can go to because she's very similar to Heather Graham in terms of how she bowls. Everything is so similar to Heather Graham, and she can bat decently as well. Is at least that's what I've watched of her lately as well. So she could be an option that they can go to ahead of Chloe Skelton if they are just happy with having Dipti Sharma as a sole off spinner. If that's the case, then of course Sophia Turner is an addition that they can have over Chloe Skelton, but it's pretty much the same again because Skelton is not a mug with the bat. So it's not going to make that bit of a difference. But otherwise, they just don't have any other choices. I mean, they'll have to stick with that. But it's just that top seven is so solid that I don't know how many games would they get into a situation where, the batting will be required right down to 9, 10 or 11. So it's a top seven that should be able to do the job more often than not.
Yeah, agree with you there, of course. Like I said, even while talking about it, I probably am being a bit too nitpicky there, but it's just something for them to be wary of. But once again, you've done your job really well when you've got 3 gun all-rounders in your overseas contingent. In Annabelle Sutherland, Jess Johnson, and Deepti Sharma, you can almost expect, most of the bowling responsibilities being shouldered by them. And that's where it's gone a long way in ensuring they've got a very good bowling depth in their 11. The 11 that we just formed, there are 7 bowling options, and even the 7th bowling option is someone you wouldn't really hesitate giving the ball to. They're not part-timers, so to say. You've got 7 proper frontline bowling options, and that's always at least for me personally, that's a hallmark of a good T20 side, of a good shorter format side, because I'm big on all-rounders. I feel it is important for you to be able to bring in that bowling depth. Somewhere one might argue that the bowling depth has come at the cost of batting depth, but I think that's a compromise well done because it does look decent. The first 11 especially does look more than decent. Leeds, of course, we know how the surface tends to be. It's a lot more batter friendly. It's not very spin friendly. So it'll be very interesting to see what sort of tactics will we get to see from, the Sunrisers Leeds. On the one end, you've got Lauren Winfield Hill opening for them, who doesn't necessarily strike very aggressively. And then you've got someone like Bryony Smith, another name for me personally to watch out for, a name that I've thoroughly enjoyed watching in the past. And I hope she does some good things. And then you've got, of course, the glip smacking, the very mercurial Phoebe Litchfield. Excited to see what she brings to the table this time. Of course, was the highest run scorer for Northern Superchargers. Played a very big role in them lifting their first ever title. Let's see if they are able to defend their title successfully this time around, though. Anyways, that's that from Sunrisers Leeds. And now it is time to move slightly down south to Nottingham because that's where Trent Rockets will be plying their trade, not under Nat Silverbrand, but under Ash Gardner. And that will once again already be an interesting thing to look at. But even before that, Jeet, once again, a very interesting side. And earlier, I unfortunately represented this side or misrepresented this side because this is the side that's gone ahead with 4 wicket keepers, something that I found a bit bizarre. But apart from that, of course, that's just one thought that really stuck with me while looking at their setup. What did you make of the squad in general, and how do you see them sort of shaping up entering the tournament?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. In the past, at least, I've really liked the kind of squads that they've come up with, but they have just not been good, at utilizing the domestic players historically. They've either been underutilized or not utilized at all. So Ash Gardner, I think last year also she was the skipper. She led the Trent Rockets, so this is her second year. And again, I'm not too sure how she's going to go about it, but I just felt that there was one really good option that they had by acquiring Georgia Adams, someone that I don't rate so highly when it comes to the batting bit because that technique just doesn't convince me. But as a leader, she has been fantastic. I've been watching and observing her for so long, with the Southern Vipers and then, now with Hampshire as well. With Southern Brave also, she got them to the finals last year as well. So I think she was a very good option for them to actually, fall back to. She knows the players, she rotates them so well, and she knows whom to ball at what point in time. And what really stands out for me is also the way she communicates with them. She's a lot more active in terms of how she is as a skipper with her bowlers. At the same time, Ash, I feel, is a little bit, laid back. She just decides, kind of sit back and observe a lot more and let the bowlers do their own job. So that's an option that, they could have gone to. So that's pretty much the only big issue that I have in terms of leadership. Otherwise, squad wise, yeah, it's a bit of mixed bag because I'm not sure how these teams or the think tank thinks about it, or whether they even consider these sort of things. But pairing up Sophia Dunkley and Beth Mooney is a big no. Not from the batting perspective, but the running. Beth Mooney has historically been one of the worst runners that I've ever seen in women's cricket, and Sophia Dunkley is not far off. Now, mark my words, this is going to happen. Not once, it could happen twice, or it could happen even more than twice, but there will be runouts between the two of them. There will be. Someone of the two is going to end up getting run out multiple times. So it's a pairing that they could have avoided, and now they are in such a situation where they have no choice. Unless if they are willing to have Georgia Adams open alongside Beth Mooney and shift Sophia Dunkley to number 3 or number 4, then it's a different case. Otherwise, that's something that they should have also looked into. It's a factor that many may not see it, but at least this is something that I've observed with both of these players, and pairing them comes with its own perils.
Interesting, and that's a very valid point, to be honest, because you've spoken time and time again about Beth Mooney's run scoring, or not exactly run scoring, just running ability or the lack of it. And that's just someone like Sophia Dunkley being paired with her will be interesting. I would be very surprised if Sophia Dunkley bats in the middle order for them, because they've already got Nat Brandt and Ash Gardner completely locked in seal at number 3, number 4. They wouldn't want to tinker it one bit. And with Beth Mooney at the top, to be honest, let's probably start off with the positives. You've got 3 gun players, 3 banks, to be honest. Nat Brown, Beth Mooney, you don't need to worry. I mean, lack of form is not a problem that you will see with them, even if you have a million problems with them. And then you've got Ash Gardner, who, again, you might not get the most consistent run from her, but a very dependable all-rounder to have someone who will definitely add value with either the bat or ball, if not both, time and time again. And that's already a good sign. The batting lineup definitely shapes up more than decently, right, for them?
Yeah, I think the top 4 is really good. When you look at them on paper, Beth Mooney is a bank, like you mentioned. Sophia Dunkley has historically done well in this competition, averaging over 30. Nat Brandt, you just cannot question her class and quality when it comes to the batting bit. And Ash Gardner is somebody who has underperformed a little with the bat, but we know what she is capable of. On a given day, if she comes off, she's going to win you games single-handedly. So that top 4 is not an issue at all. There is quality written all over that particular top 4 that they've got. It's probably what comes thereafter, where there are just so many questions. There are big issues after that. Bess Heath is very inconsistent. So many funky shots. They've got Georgia Elvis, who's not suited to this format of the game. Georgia Adams, again, who's not somebody who's suited to this format of the game. At least technically, she's not the best. So she's done well as an opener this year for Hampshire. Down the order, I don't know what to really expect from her. She strikes it decently against spinner. She can clear the ropes, but that technique is not there. And when you have somebody like Georgia Adams being a finisher, I don't think it's a good sign. The options are Emma Jones, really a high impact player, X factor, but her variety of shots are not so big. They are not so large. Just 2 go-to shots when she wants to find boundaries. So that range is where she lacks. Besides these, they've got Eve Jones as a backup to the top order. Sophie Luff is also backup to the top order. I wouldn't want these batters to be batting below 4. So the options are very limited. Amu Suren Kumar is the only other option that they could go to, was in direct contention with Georgia Elvis and Emma Jones as a pace all-rounder. Amu Suren Kumar is actually decent, at least somebody that I would prefer over the other 2 names that I took, because she bowls well. She shows good intent with the bat as well, and she's a terrific outfielder as well. So at least somebody that I would prefer over Elvis and Emma Jones at the moment. But I don't know whether that's going to happen.
Those are some interesting points that you mentioned there, Jeet, about the batting lineup. But when you also shed some light on the bowling attack, one name that I genuinely did not see coming was Sam Bates. Once again, no offense to her, I don't think she's like a very bad spinner or anything like that. She's a very good spinner, but it just made me wonder. Like in my head, I thought there are probably better options available. Not just from a bowling perspective, but from a package perspective. Maybe you could have gone for an all-rounder. You could have gone for someone else, or there were enough slow left armers available in domestic cricket. Is Sam Bates a clear upgrade over everyone? I don't know what to answer for that. And that's why, Jeet, what did you make of that pick in particular, and what do you make of the bowling attack in general?
So I'm going to throw in a surprise, and I think many are going to criticize me for it, but I rate Sam Bates as the best left arm spinner in the power play in the world. She's better than Sophie Molyneux. She's better than Jess Johnson as well. The fact that she has not played for Australia is simple. She doesn't bat. And we know that Australia always prefers bowlers who can bat. And Sam Bates doesn't offer that value with the bat. So that's perhaps the only reason why she has never represented Australia. Otherwise, I was so happy when I saw this name getting picked. I didn't see it coming personally, but I rate her so highly because I've watched years and years of WBBL and I've seen what she does with the new ball as a left arm spinner. Where it's going to be something different is because she gets into a territory that's not been charted before. She comes here as an overseas pro in different conditions altogether because she's a tall left arm spinner, a lot more like Sophie Eccleston. In Australia, you can use that bounce to your advantage as a tall left arm spinner. In England, the bounce may not be as much at Trent Bridge. So if she can make use of that, or if she gets that bounce off the surface, then it could really work out for her. But still unfamiliar territory for us. That's the only bit that I have my doubts about. In terms of quality, I can't question it. I think the way she performs in the power play in the WBBL is sensational. Game after game, having high impact, not only keeping the runs down, but also taking wickets time and again, always, convinces me so much. And she's someone who's also used in the power surge in the WBBL. So just for the uninitiated, WBBL has a concept of 4 overs of power play and 2 overs of power surge, which can be utilized at the back end of the innings. So she has 1 over kept for that power surge as well. So it's very clear as to how she's utilized in any team. So I'm personally really happy to see that name find a gig finally in an overseas competition.
All right, very interesting. I mean, like I said earlier, it's not that I did not think of her as a very good bowler. Just that, yeah, was Sam Bates a part of my list when I thought of what are some of the options that Trent Rockets would want to go to? Probably not. But one thing that I do believe Trent Rockets got right was their combination in some sense, at least with the bowling attack, because I don't want to believe that Natsav Brunt will not be bowling a lot, and it is fair to assume something like that. And outside her, they'll probably have just the two pace options in their starting 11. They'll go for a lot more spinners, and I think they have played it smart that way, intentional or not, because of Trent Bridge and what the surface does over there in Nottingham. And that's where, Jeet, now when you look at the spinners that they've got, the likes of Katie Levick now comes to the table. Did not do too badly, I want to say, for Birmingham Phoenix. Again, very experienced, is also fairly old, but again, a very dependable wrist spinner. Then you've got Ash Gardner, you've got Sam Bates. There's a nice mix of variety. Then, of course, there's also Georgia Adams, who bowls a bit of off spin herself. A very nice group of spinners, especially for a surface like Trent Bridge.
Yeah, it's a very good blend of spinners that they've got. Not to forget, there is a Millie Taylor as well in the option as left arm wrist spinner. I still felt she was undercooked last season. It was probably a year too early for her to, make a debut in the 100. But I could understand. Came on the back of being the leading wicket taker in the Blast last season.
Yeah.
So I could understand that perspective. But I feel she's good to go now as she was last year. But otherwise, I don't think she's going to start, by the way. But just having, these 4 spinners, I feel is a proper bank. All 4 are dependable, let's face it, because Katie Levick as a wrist spinner is one of the few wrist spinners who can bowl the power play and who can also bowl the death.
True.
Ash Gardner is dependable as well. Sam Bates is dependable. She's probably going to share the new ball. There is a good chance of that as well. And there is Georgia Adams, who is really consistent and very, very disciplined as a spinner as well. So it's a very bankable quartet of spinners that they would probably have in the playing 11. So something that I'm really happy about. It's just the pace bit that actually concerns me a bit, because they've got Kim Garth who'll be taking the new ball. Then I feel there's going to be Charlie Phillips who's going to be sharing the new ball with her potentially. It's a third pacer that actually worries me a bit, because if Natsiva Brunt bowls, then it's not an issue. But if she doesn't bowl, then that third pacer could be a bit of problem, because Georgia Elvis is decent but hasn't done so well in this competition, averaging over 30. Amu Suren Kumar is inexperienced at this level, and Emma Jones doesn't bowl so much. So that could be a bit of an issue, because if you land up in conditions where the ball is doing quite a bit for the Pacers, then you'll be stuck having just two proper frontline Pacers on your side. Or at least, even outside of Trent Bridge, if you go into conditions where it's a lot more conducive to pace bowling, then your options are going to be really limited. So if they somehow find a way to accommodate both of Charlie Phillips and Sophie Munro, then it's going to be a different case altogether, because then you have that extra pace option as well. Sophie Munro is somebody that you can bank upon in picking early wickets. She gets the
Yeah.
ball to swing it both the ways, and she's really good with how she goes about it. Pretty much gives you a wicket every game with the new ball. It's just how do you fit her in this side? I think that is what is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, to be honest, the pace attack does look heavily reliant on Kimgat. And again, to be honest, Kimgat is a name that I personally rate very highly. So I wouldn't complain too much considering the quartet of spinners that they have. Charlie Phillips though is another name that I'm really looking forward to be honest, because I did watch a bit of her after the auction because I wanted to know, is she good enough for Trent Rockets to feature in their first 11, because they clearly did not have a lot of other options. They went for Grace Johnson, who unfortunately got injured later, and they brought in Sophie Munro as a replacement. And I did like what I saw of Charlie, because there is a bit of that sling, there is a bit of that differential that she brings to the table. Once again, these are things that I really like. I'm almost pissed at myself that I didn't bring up Millie Taylor's name, because she was the one name I was looking forward to even at the auction. I was hoping that she would get a few more bits. Ended up being a base price pick for Trent Rockets, but I still don't mind that because we don't see a lot of left arm wrist spinners. Although Jeet said that she was a bit raw, I did like what I saw of her even last year itself. Especially the fundamentals, the action, the way she ran to the crease. She did not look very sort of out of place, because it's a very rare bowling type. So a lot of people in general, when you look at them, they have awkward actions or awkward run-ups. Wasn't the case with her. Look very smooth, look very clean. So I'm hoping that she comes back this time around after that injury last season. I mean, I hope she has a proper full-fledged season if she ever gets a game, because even I don't have her as part of my starting 11 as much as I'm excited for her. Jeet, talking about the 11 itself, though, we spoke about a lot of things. How does that 11 shape up for you?
Top four are a lock in. Look, these are not my top four, but I expect Beth Mooney, Sophia Dunkley to open, NSB at number three, Ash Gardner at number four. Number five has to be Bess Heath. Then number six is a spot that I feel is open for grabs. There is the experience of Georgia Elvis versus the youth of Emma Jones and Amu Suren Kumar to go to. So whom do they go for is something I don't quite know. Over here, I'm just assuming they're going to go ahead with the experience of Georgia Elvis at number six. Number seven, Georgia Adams. Number eight, Kim Garth. Number nine, Charlie Phillips. Number 10, Katie Levick. And number 11 will be Sam Bates.
Yeah, fair enough. The set of 11 names remain the same for me too. And Georgia Elvis is what I also went ahead with simply because of the experience bit. And it'll also, of course, depend on, how the net sessions go and what sort of approach do they have in mind, what sort of tactics are they thinking. But to begin with, all things said and done, you would want to believe someone like a Georgia Elvis will start for them. And it'll be interesting to see, because Trent Rockets, once again, has also been one of those sides that I've personally wanted to see do a lot more. Even last year when they had the likes of Alana King at Trent Bridge, I really wanted to see them do much better. Has never really been the case. But when I say an Alana King, I also want to talk about how earlier they had Bryony Smith, Grace Crivens. They had a very different kind of a top order along with Nat Wraith and then Nat Brandt. So it was interesting from there. Now they've sort of flipped the switch. They've gone to dependable banks. Sophia Dunkley first being brought in, roped in as one of the preseason signings was interesting. Pairing her up with Beth Mooney, who ended up being the most expensive buy at the auction, was also interesting. So clearly there have been some changes in the direction that they want to look at. And I hope finally Trent Rockets actually do well and play to their potential, because this has also been one of those perennial underachievers in the women's 100. So hopefully we'll see them come good. Anyways, that's that from Trent Rockets. Time, of course, for the last team of the 100. It is none other than Welsh Fire. Once again, a side that was actually bought over, but not by any of the IPL franchises, was taken over by an American businessman. I'm forgetting the name. Apologies for it. Indian origin American businessman. It's as generic as it sounds, but I know that is the profile of the owner. But apart from that, of course, Michael Klinger was roped in as the head coach. Some very interesting names, some very expensive buys. All in all, once again, Jeet, Welsh Fire, what do you make of them?
I have to admit that they are arguably the best assembled squad. I'd be really surprised if they don't end up making the top three. Just the kind of names that they've got on the side, the number of all rounders that they've got on the side, the number of match winners that they have on the side. It's going to take something spectacular for them to mess their campaign up entirely. So personally, I'm really happy to see the kind of names that have actually stacked up in this particular squad. Fairly surprising that Sophie Devine also went for such a massive sum. but you could probably still see that value, right?
Yeah.
Wherever she pretty much plays, you can see the kind of impact she ends up having with the bat and with the ball as well. So she still has this much value, which is quite amazing. So good lineup. Few interesting acquisitions. I'm really happy with the kind of finishers that they've got as well. They've got Freya Kemp, they've got Georgia Verham as well. A good top order as well. Just that, a couple of spots could be an issue, but I feel that, the other names in the side are just so good that it should be able to make up for it. Won't be that big a problem for them.
I mean, I would be very happy if I had at least one or two of Sophie Devine, Georgia Wyram, Freya Kemp, Emma Litt. The fact that they managed to open all four of them in at an auction, to be honest, that's where I was genuinely impressed by. But of course, when you look at the preseason signings too, I was very happy with the direction that they were looking at. They went ahead with three signings. They went for Freya Kemp, they went for Georgia Wall, and they went for Georgia Wyram. So two of those all rounders were actually signed before the auction. Once again, the clarity was there for everyone to see, and I was very impressed with it because all three of them are very young, but all three of them are proven match winners. And again, someone like a Freya Kemp, people might also argue that's a very risky proposition because she herself is coming back from injuries. You're not sure what exactly is she going to bring to the table. In fact, she played the last season mainly as a batter, did not really bowl much. So with all of those sort of questions hanging in the air, for them to still sort of take that punt was fantastic to see. And then outside that, of course, the some of the buys, the strategy, and the way they went about their business. Once again, one of those sides that did not have a lot of losing bits, though that's something that I personally do look at. And it was very heartening to see that, this is finally a side that's looking really good for me. And to be honest, for a side, at least for me to consider a side to be really good, despite having Heather Graham at number 6, it must take some doing. And apologies, Heather Graham, no offense to you, but yeah, it's looking really good, to be honest. And I don't want to jump the gun, but I do like the look of the side, like Jeet mentioned. Talking about, let's start off with probably the batting, Jeet. Georgia Wall, Sarah Bryce, Sophie Devine, Freya Kemp, Heather Graham, Georgia Wyram. That's, I mean, probably gun is the only word that comes to my mind. That looks so solid, so good, and so aggressive. Like, you know that this is a side that will be going hell for glory almost every time.
Yeah, it's just too good. I just don't know where Sophie Devon is going to be batting. That's probably the only question. But because it's Michael Klinger, she's probably going to be opening
Yeah.
again alongside Georgia Wall. So it's a top-notch opening pair to have, two really powerful batters up front. Otherwise, domestically also, I think they've managed to acquire some decent names. Ella McCocken is not somebody that I rate so highly in the T20 format of the game, but she's still consistent as a batter. She'll give you like 20, 30 runs. It could be off a low strike rate, but she's going to provide that. Sarah Bryce has faced a bit of a dip over the last probably 12 to 20 months, but she's finding her feet again. Lately, when I've been watching her for the Blaze, I think she's been doing a decent job over there as well. The options are decent as well. Abby Norgrove is perhaps more ideally suited to number 3, but I don't think she's going to start. Rihanna Southby is a direct wicket keeper backup in the side for Sarah Bryce. Then they made an interesting acquisition in Neve Holland, somebody that at least I would prefer at number 3 over Abby Norgrove or even Ella McCocken, purely because she's an X factor batter. A work in progress of the ball, but with the bat, if she comes off, she's giving you like 40 of 20. And that 40 of 20 could just be fours, but she has the ability to hit the ball powerfully along the ground and hit the gaps. So that's another interesting acquisition that they made. I think she was a wild card pick, if I'm not wrong. So decent side, good ending as well. Freya came at number 5, Georgia Verham at number 6. Heather Graham has struggled with the bat. She's been doing a decent job in the Blast this season with the bat, but I still feel that she has faced a massive dip with the bat. And then there is M. Arlott who can bat as well. There is Sophia Smale who can bat as well. Georgia Davis can bat a bit as well. So a good lineup, a really powerful batting lineup is how I would put it, because they've got two crucial parts of this particular batting that's covered. One is the power play batting and one is the death phase batting, which is really well sorted.
I mean, we've really gone gung ho about their batting. And to be honest, when you look at the batting lineup, you already see 3 to 4 bowling options as well right up there. That's what makes it even more sort of, appealing to the eye. But when you go lower down, when you look at frontline bowling options, once again, this is where you can probably be a lot more critical, I guess, because a lot of those names, not exactly the most, or not exactly the first names that come to your mind when you want to build a bowling attack, so to say. At least with frontline bowling options, you look at Emma Lid, you look at Sophia Smith, you look at Grace Potts, to some extent, even someone like a Fee Morris, if they want to consider. What do you make of the bowling lineup and the way it's shaped up?
Personally, I don't mind it. It's still pretty good because M. Arlott will be taking the new ball, and she will be partnered up with Grace Potts, who I feel is pretty good as well. So Grace Potts, I feel, might end up with only a role in the power play, but she's going to end up bowling 10 to 15 balls in the power play. Again, a very tall pacer, gets the ball to shape away from the right-handers, and she's been in a very good form this season. So that combination is very exciting of having M. Arlott and Grace Potts share the new ball. So I personally don't really mind that. Again, with the support pacers of Sophie Devine, who'll probably be operating in the middle phase. There's going to be Freya Kemp as well, who's good to go, of course. So she'll be operating with the pace, and Heather Graham with the cutters as well. So it's a very good look of the pace attack, which is something that I don't really mind. Similarly, the spin attack is is not so bad. Sophia Smale is really good as a left arm spinner. She burst onto the scene in the 100, taking some big scalps in her very first season with the Oval Invincibles. So she made her name by picking up those big wickets, and she has been fantastic thereafter as well. Playing domestically for Essex, partnered up with Georgia Davis, who I feel is very underrated also as an off spinner. Leeds, Warwickshire in the counties, and even in the past, I feel she has been involved with the Welsh fire, but she hasn't got a massive role to play purely because there was a Hayley Matthews as well who featured for the Welsh fire, so it reduced the role for Georgia Davis as a frontline spinner. Over here, it's not going to be an issue because I don't expect Georgia Wall to be bowling so much. So Davis has to put her hand up, and she will be the lead off spinner at least in this particular side. And then, of course, they've got the spin option in Georgia Wareham, bringing her spin variety as well. So I just feel that it's a very, very well-rounded bowling attack, whether you talk about the spin department or the pace department. I feel the look of the bowling attack is really good.
Yeah, it is looking very good, to be honest. And it just hit me that they've gone in with three Georgias. I don't know if that was by choice, by design or not, but interesting that on their part. But yeah, the spin attack definitely I'm not very concerned with, because I do like Sophia Smale. Whatever I've seen of her, Georgia Barham happens to be one of my favorite cricketers in general. So there'll be a lot of bias coming in. With off spin, you've got two more Georgias to add. There's Davis and Wall if they really want to look at. So I think it is a very well-rounded spin bowling attack with the pacers as well, because we've not spoken much about Sophie Devine and Freya Kemp. We only spoke about the frontline pace options. When you add Devine and Kemp, that is a very well-rounded bowling attack. Importantly, they've got plenty of bowling options to depend on, so they don't have to worry about someone having an off day or someone coming through with a niggle. They have enough backup options in the 11 itself, let alone the squad. And that's not something we can talk about or say about for a lot of teams. Just in part one of the preview, we were talking about how with Manchester Super Giants, should, God forbid, someone like a Sophie Eccleston or a Maddie Villiers end up with some sort of a niggle, you're already, done and dusted, because you don't have a lot of options to look at to replace someone like them. And that's where I think Welsh Fire has done a more than decent job of ensuring they've covered most bases, if not all. And now talking about the 11, Jeet, how does it shape up for you?
So I'm going with two big hitters and Georgia Wall and Sophie Devine as openers. I think it's a safer combination to predict, unless if they shift Sophie Devine down to four, then I don't know. But this is a safer opening combination to predict, which means Ella McCocken will have to bat at number 3. She generally likes to open, but I think she'll have to shift down, unless if they feel that Abby Norgrove is literally suited to that role. Only in that scenario, Abby Norgrove will bat at number 3. But over here, I'm going for Ella McCocken at number 3, Sarah Bryce at number 4, Priya Kemp at number 5, then Georgia Wareham, Heather Graham, Emma Arlott, and then the last 3 will be Sophia Smith, Georgia Davis, and Grace Potts.
I agree with the names. Once again, it's the order that I'm not too sure of. While I get that because it's Michael Klinger and he did open with Sophie Devine for the Gujarat Giants or at the Gujarat Giants, I don't know if they will replicate something like that here, because last year we also saw Sophie Devine bat in the middle order for Southern Brave. Of course, different side, different venue, different squad, a lot of other variables that will need to be taken into consideration. That I did think that Sophie Devine might also bat in the middle order, because in the World Cup and even before that in the series versus England, she came up with some really good performances, and all of them came in the middle order once again. So that probably might also, make Klinger wonder that, probably they can have someone like her in the middle order. And that's where Ella McCogan opening, Sarah Bryce at number 3, and Sophie Devine at number 4 is what I've gone ahead with. But again, the 11 remains the same, or the names remain the same. This is something that probably they would want to consider. But I guess that's that from Welsh Fire. But before we wrap it up, I thought I'll throw a couple of curve balls to Jeet and then end it. I won't talk about predictions and all of it, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like we said earlier, a lot of these sides are coming from scratch. This is the first proper reset that we've seen in the 100. So we'll have to wait and watch how, some of these sides approach their squads, their combination. So it's just too many variables for us to try and, predict. What I would want is your top 3 sides, at least in terms of strength, based on what you've seen so far, based on whatever controllables in hand. What are your top 3 squads?
I've got to go for Welsh as one of the top sides. Look, we just discussed about them. It's a very well-rounded side in pretty much every department, including the fielding that we didn't even touch upon. They've got gun
True.
fielders in the side as well. Georgia Venom, Freya Kemp. It's an endless list over there. So they've got to be, one of the top teams, at least for me. Second, I would still say Sunrisers Leeds. They look pretty good to me. That top six, top seven is just so convincing that I feel most of the games would see them getting the job, and it won't go down to their tail enders as such. With the bat and with the ball as well, I feel they've got pretty good experience options in their lineup. Number three is a bit of a challenge because Trent Rockets doesn't cut out for me. MI London doesn't cut out for me.
Okay, I would want to believe you're removing Manchester Super Giants as well.
Yeah,
Just
no, definitely
uh,
no
uh,
Manchester Super Giants either. So it could be potentially between London Spirit. They are one of the teams that I would have in contention. Southern Brave as well, for that matter. Who else was
Birmingham
remaining?
Phoenix is another team that's there.
Birmingham Phoenix is a good shout as well. Yeah, I think Birmingham Phoenix probably for me slightly better than I would say London Spirit, just because they have a much better team, more dependable names than what they've had previously. So I think I would go ahead with Birmingham Phoenix, just edging over the likes
Hmm.
of Southern Brave and London Spirit.
Fair enough. I mean, to be honest, if I look at my top three, Welsh, Birmingham, Phoenix, these were two sides that I really like the look of. It's that number three spot that I wasn't too sure of. For me, it was between London Spirit and Southern Brave. I'm not entirely sold on Sunrisers Leeds. Of course, I have, like I said, I have my own biases to keep in check for that. Maybe between the two, I'll probably tilt slightly towards London Spirit just because of the likes of Maizan, Cup, and everything. And with Southern Wave, they don't have all rounders. They almost have no all rounders whatsoever. That's not something I personally would prefer in sides that I'm looking forward to. Again, it's a very personal, it's a very subjective call. To be clear, we're not talking about the top three sides or the top three best sides of the competition. We're talking about our favorite squads or what we've liked the most. Of course, the 100 is going to start tomorrow at the time of this. I mean, by the time this video comes out. So it'll be very exciting to see how that tournament pans out. Until then, it's a goodbye for both of us, of course. Thank you so much for staying till the end. If you haven't already, please make sure you've hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, please make sure you've liked the video. If you haven't already, do let us know what you make of the four teams. Importantly, of course, do check out Jeet Vajrajani on X. Also, do subscribe to him on his Substack. I think he's just started off. He'll be putting a bunch of previews, reviews over there too. He'll be a lot more active there, at least that's what he's promised. So in that case, please make sure you've also followed him over there. Until then, it's a goodbye from both of us. We will be back soon talking about all of these games, and hopefully we are in for a cracker of a tournament.